40,000 years ago, in total darkness, deep inside a cave no sunlight had ever touched, someone crawled for over a kilometer, past drops, past narrow crawl spaces barely wide enough for a body, carrying nothing but a torch and a piece of charcoal. They weren't hiding from anything. They were about to make something that would outlast every human who has ever lived since. In 1994, 3 explorers in southern France stumbled into a cave sealed off by a rockslide for over 20,000 years. Inside, they found something that shouldn't have existed. Hundreds of paintings, lions, bison, horses, rhinos, rendered with a level of skill that looked almost modern. This was Chauvet Cave, and the paintings inside weren't a few scratches. They were shaded, layered, and deliberately composed, some animals drawn using the natural curve of the rock to create the illusion of depth and movement. These weren't the first attempts of a species just figuring out how to draw. They were the work of people who had clearly been doing this for a very long time already. Chauvet's paintings have been dated to roughly 36,000 years ago. To put that in perspective, that's older than the pyramids by over 30,000 years, older than farming, older than the wheel, older than most of what we'd recognize as civilization by an almost incomprehensible margin, and Chauvet isn't even the oldest example. In a cave on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, researchers found a painting of a wild pig estimated to be at least 45,500 years old. These people had no permanent homes, no writing, no metal tools, and life expectancies most of us would consider a tragedy. So why were they spending their limited time and energy painting animals on walls? The easy explanation is decoration, early interior design, but that theory falls apart fast. Most of these paintings weren't placed somewhere people actually lived. Chauvet's most detailed panels are deep inside the cave system, past sections that would have required crawling through total darkness for hours. Nobody was walking past these paintings on their way to dinner. You had to go out of your way, at real physical risk, specifically to reach them. Whatever this was, it wasn't casual. It wasn't something painted and forgotten. The placement alone tells us these images mattered enough to justify serious effort and serious danger to create and to view. One leading theory is that cave art was tied to ritual and shamanic practice. Anthropologists studying isolated hunter-gatherer societies have documented shamans entering trance states through rhythmic drumming, chanting, sensory deprivation, or extended time in darkness, reporting visions involving exactly the kinds of animals found painted deep in caves. Under this theory, the cave itself wasn't a canvas. It was treated as a threshold, a permeable boundary between the physical world and a spiritual one. Going deep into total darkness may have induced altered mental states even without any ritual at all. If the earliest painters were experiencing something similar, the paintings may not have been depictions of animals they'd seen. They may have been records of animals they saw in a completely different state of mind. A second theory ties the paintings directly to survival. Many of the animals depicted were dangerous, high-value prey: bison, horses, mammoths, rhinos. Some paintings show spear marks or wounds already on the animal's body, painted directly onto the image. The theory here is a form of sympathetic magic, the belief that controlling a representation of something gives you influence over the real thing. Paint the kill before the hunt, and maybe you're improving your odds when it actually happens. It's a logic that shows up in hunting cultures across the world and across history, and if you're facing down an animal that can kill you with one wrong move, needing every psychological edge available isn't irrational. It's practical. A third theory has nothing to do with spirits or luck and everything to do with information. Before writing existed, knowledge had to live somewhere. Cave art may have functioned as a teaching tool and a memory system, a way to pass down which animals were dangerous, how they moved, where they could be found, and how a hunt actually played out to people who hadn't experienced it firsthand yet. Some panels appear to show sequences, an animal in different positions, as if illustrating movement or a hunting technique step by step. If that's accurate, these weren't just pictures. They may have been some of the earliest instructional diagrams humans ever made. Alongside the animals, caves across the world share one other recurring image: hand stencils. A hand pressed against the wall, pigment blown around it through a hollow bone or reed, leaving a ghostly negative outline behind. These appear in France, Spain, Indonesia, and Argentina, places with no possible contact with each other, separated by tens of thousands of kilometers and in some cases tens of thousands of years. And yet the same idea keeps appearing. A hand pressed to stone, saying in the most literal way possible, "I was here." It might be the single oldest form of self-documentation our species ever invented, the ancestor of every signature, every carved initial, every name scratched into a desk. There's one painted figure that doesn't fit neatly into any of these theories, and it might be the strangest image to survive from the entire Ice Age. Deep in a cave called Trois-Frères in southern France, high on a rock face above everything else painted around it, is a figure that's part man, part animal. It stands upright like a person, but it has antlers like a deer, ears like an owl, a tail like a horse, and paws instead of hands. Researchers often call it the Sorcerer, though nobody knows if that's remotely accurate. It isn't hidden in a side passage like a lot of the animal paintings. It's placed high above the chamber, almost looking down over everything else, as if it were watching or presiding over whatever happened there. Some researchers think it's a shaman mid-transformation, caught between human and animal. Others think it might represent a deity, a spirit guide, or simply a costume worn during a ritual we no longer understand. Whatever it actually was, it tells us something important. Even 15,000 years ago, humans weren't just painting what they saw, they were painting what they imagined. Here's the uncomfortable part for anyone wanting a clean answer. These theories aren't mutually exclusive, and we may never be able to prove which one or which combination is correct. The people who made these paintings left no writing, no explanation, nothing except the images themselves. Every interpretation is built from indirect evidence, placement, where patterns, comparative anthropology, and educated inference. What we can say with confidence is narrower but still remarkable. By at least 45,000 years ago, humans were already capable of abstract thought, symbolic representation, and long-term collective meaning-making. The capacity for art isn't a recent software update, it's original equipment. It's tempting to picture early humans as purely reactive, driven only by hunger, threat, and survival instinct. But someone who is only surviving doesn't crawl a kilometer into pitch darkness to paint a bison with deliberate shading and perspective. That behavior requires imagination. It requires the ability to think about something that isn't immediately in front of you, and the motivation to create it anyway, for reasons that weren't strictly necessary for staying alive. Whatever the exact reason, ritual, magic, memory, or something we haven't figured out yet, the paintings tell us something that matters more than the specific answer. Even 40,000 years ago, survival was never the whole story. The paint has faded in most of these caves. In some, it's already gone forever, destroyed by mold, flooding, or simple erosion faster than expected once outside air reached them. What's left is a small, fragile record of the first time a human being looked at a blank wall and decided to leave something behind on purpose. If you want the next one of these the moment it's out, you know what to do.